Welcome to the Stanford Graduate School of Business online information session. My name is Stephanie Whitland, and I'm a member of the MBA Admissions Office. I'm excited to spend the next 60 minutes with you, talking about the MBA experience, the admissions process, and answering your questions. You'll also have a chance to meet a couple of our current students and ask them about their experience here on campus. So, let's begin. Let's start by having each of you briefly introduce yourselves and talk a little bit about your backgrounds. What were you doing before business school and what your goals are after you graduate? I'll start with you, Animesh.
Thanks, Tiffany. My name is Animesh Agarwal. I'm a second-year student at the GSB. I grew up in Bhopal, Madhya Pradesh, where I spent the first 18 years of my life. I did my undergrad from IIT Delhi, and post-graduation I worked with a management consulting firm in New Delhi for about 1.5 years, and then spent about 2.5 years in Mumbai working for a private equity firm. Post-graduation, I plan to be in investing broadly.
Mm-hmm. Very good, thank you. And Sushmita?
I'm Sushmita. I'm from Hyderabad. Again, spent the first 18 years of my life in Hyderabad, then went to IIT Madras for engineering. After IIT, I joined Unilever in Mumbai as a management trainee. I worked there for about 3.5 years when I got into GSB. My goal for before getting into GSB was to actually transition from consumer goods background to consumer tech product management. So before joining GSB, I did a couple of internships in this space.
Okay, great. Thank you both. Now let's answer some questions from our audience. The first question we'll start with is, what's the best way to prepare to get the most out of Stanford if I'm fortunate enough to be admitted?
Okay, I can take that one. I think GSB is a place where you can virtually do everything. But what I've realized spending time here is you can do everything here, but not at the same time. So what I would encourage all of you to think through is, what are the 2-3 main things you plan to achieve at the business school, and keep that top of mind. And as you evaluate the opportunities at a GSB, keeping that lens in mind, so that like when you walk out of GSB at the end of 2 years, you don't feel like you have not achieved what you came in thinking about.
Great, thanks.
Totally agree with what Animesh said. In addition to that, life's gonna get real hectic once you come here. I kind of worked till the end of July. I barely took any break. Don't make that mistake. I would say take a couple of months off and spend time with your loved ones, because you are not gonna see them very often once you come here. So that's my advice.
Great, thank you both. The next question, when is the best time to apply in your career trajectory? And I'll take this one from an admissions perspective. You can add any color if you'd like. So if you think about it, from an admissions perspective, when you apply is completely irrelevant. We admit candidates who are just graduating from college, so we admit individuals who are college seniors. And we also have individuals who have at least a decade or two of work experience in every class every year. So it can run the whole gamut in terms of work experience. I think it's important for you to think about what makes sense for you. So when is the right time for you, rather than how we will evaluate the number of years of work experience you have. Do you guys have anything to add there?
I think you covered it all.
Okay, very good. The next question, what is the biggest surprise you experienced as you began your Stanford MBA journey?
I can take that. I think the biggest surprise for me was the feedback culture that existed here, especially the certain courses which we do in the very first quarter. It gives us a good taste into how much feedback is valued and how much people are eager to act upon the feedback they get. It was something very new to me. And the second thing which was surprising to me is the sheer number of events that were there for people with all kinds of preferences for socializing. There's no one way to do the GSB experience. There is so much support and resources provided to help everybody realize their GSB social life the way they want it to be. That was a a pleasant surprise, I would say.
Very good. Yeah. Anything to add?
Yeah, I think in terms of academic experience, the class environment here encourages and appreciates active participation from all students. So I think coming from a background where in the classroom environment you're not used to sharing those many experiences or views, it was important to appreciate that this is a culture that wants you to share your views and experiences in the class.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Very open and honest feedback you'll get, whether you want it or not, right? um, are there specific admissions requirements for international students? I'll add my take to this, and that is explicitly no. One of the requirements that we do ask of international candidates, if you have attended a university where the primary language of instruction was not in English, we do require the TOEFL. We evaluate all candidates based on the same 3 criteria as I discussed in the video: intellectual vitality, demonstrated leadership potential, and personal qualities and contributions. So all candidates are evaluated equally. The next question, what is life like at the GSB as an international student?
I think GSB is an environment where you have a lot of diversity in as many aspects as you can think of. And as an international student, like I'm in a class with international students from more than 60 countries, and I think everybody comes up with their own background, own way in which they grew up, and I found it personally very fascinating to just appreciate the fact that how different people here look at life, or like what motivates them personally. And I think for some of us who have not grown up in a culture with a lot of diversity, it's really good to appreciate how people think about different things, both in personal life and academically. And thus, as an international student, I've really appreciated the American way of looking at both academic and non-academic things, and what students from other countries bring to the table.
Mm-hmm. For you, anything?
I think I'm really impressed by the kind of resources that exist for international students. I'm an international student who has never lived in US before. I've lived all my life in India before moving here. But I found so much support all around me, because there were, like I mentioned in my previous answer, there are so many resources available to socialize the way you want to socialize, mingle with other like-minded people. I currently work in the Students Association International Committee. We put in a lot of thought to actually incorporate all the major international events in Stanford life. We recently, both of us together, organized a Diwali party, which was a big hit. It was attended by like almost all other nationalities, people from all the other nationalities as well. Similarly, there's so much happening with different identity clubs that are there at GSB, be it a Latin American Students Association, there's a Business in India club which Animesh heads. There's an Africa Business Club, there is a Hispanic Students Business Association. So there are so many places where you get a lot of support career-wise as well as socially. So that's a great thing at GSB for an international student, according to me.
Okay, great. Thank you. The next question I'll address as well, which is, how do I craft a good essay? It's a popular question. What I will say, as you think about writing your essay, it's important that you use your authentic voice. First and foremost, what we're trying to identify when we read your essay is not only what matters most to you, but explicitly why. We want to understand your core values. We want to hear from your perspective, your inner voice, what's important to you. And I would say that it's not necessarily a crafting of your essay as much as it is being authentic and true to yourself and being able to convey that in a clear manner in the essay. You guys have anything to add there?
I think I would just like to reiterate, it's not a place to just show your strengths, and I would encourage all of you to be authentic, vulnerable, and these are some things that the GSB community sort of prides itself in. So it's a good way to show that through your essays.
Yeah, I would also like to add that it's not an individual exercise. I think it's a team effort. I personally ran my essay by like my closest friends and colleagues and family, some of them. So it's really useful to take inputs of people who know you very well
Yes.
to
Yeah.
add a lot of color to your essay.
Yeah, we often will say it is helpful to get perspective from those who know you incredibly well, and when they read your essay, that it sounds like you and only you.
Yeah.
Yeah. The next question is, how did you finance your MBA? Is it affordable for the average Indian person? And then I'll address some of the questions regarding financial aid and scholarships.
So I personally used a mix of three different sources. In small part of it was my own personal savings from the job I did before business school. The second major part was the financial aid that I received from the school, and the third part was the student loan that is available to all students that apply to the GSB. So I think these were the three sources that helped me finance my MBA. And to the question of it being affordable, I come from a middle class family, and I think these three sources combined like puts you in a very comfortable position to do this MBA.
Okay. Yeah.
In my case, I am a recipient of Reliance Dhirubhai Ambani Fellowship, which covered a majority of my expenses. Apart from that, I also used some of my savings from before GSB as well as some family support.
Okay. Yeah. Yes, we do offer a Reliance Dhirubhai Fellowship for Indian citizens who can benefit from 2 years of nearly full-time tuition. So that scholarship, that fellowship is available to all candidates who are citizens of India. Did you consider any graduate programs in India? And why did you decide to come to the U.S. for your MBA?
I actually did not consider other MBA programs in India. I really liked the job at HUL, which I got through an internship that I did in my third year while I was in college. I wanted to work before I do my MBA, and I was particularly fascinated by an MBA in US when I saw some of my seniors in college that I really looked up to go that way. And hearing from their experiences about doing an MBA from a school like Stanford, I understood that the global perspective and the kind of diverse experience we get in a MBA school in US, and that too having worked for a couple of years before doing an MBA is really valuable, and it's very different from doing an MBA in India. I have a lot of friends who've done MBA in India, and they all had like they have great careers. I have nothing against it, but I just feel like a US MBA is pretty diverse, and it's a great life experience.
Great.
Yeah. I think in addition to global perspective, I think I would also encourage all of you to think of the cohort. The cohort here, as I said, comes from like more than 60 different countries, have varying level of work experience. And I think that sort of diversity is very difficult to replicate in an Indian graduate school. So I think that is one factor that stood out for me.
Good. Okay. Moving along, we'll go to the next question. Can you talk about some of your favorite classes? You probably have one to share about, and professors.
Sure. So I am just rushing from a touchy-feely class. I've just concluded my touchy-feely course this quarter, which was a life-changing experience at the cost of sounding cliched, but it's undoubtedly the best experience at GSB so far. Secondly, there are a lot of other great classes in, I'm particularly interested in technology, so I do a lot of courses in technology and entrepreneurship. So there is a great course called Electronic Business, which is in the first year. Then there's another great course of Building and Managing Sales Organization, which is a very practical course, and you get to listen to some of the prominent sales leaders in the industry. There are several other courses for people interested in entrepreneurship, like Startup Garage, where you can start from the scratch, from idea phase to execution phase. A lot of people who are into entrepreneurship really like the class. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think
How
for
about you?
me, the classes which are related to communication or managing difficult conversations have stood out. And one class that comes to mind is Managing Growing Enterprises by Joel Peterson, who is the chairman of JetBlue. And that class basically talks about how do you have difficult conversations with the board? How do you fire someone? How do you give feedback to an employee who has not been performing well? So some of these conversations we will face at all phases of our life, and like just practicing them in a risk-free environment is something that I valued a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, I find oftentimes I talk to students also about, or prospective candidates about leadership labs, which addresses a lot
Yes.
of those same questions. What do you do if you have to fire someone? How do
Yes.
you handle difficult
Yeah.
conversations? So you'll get lots of practice on that. The next question is, what percent of your coursework is theory versus hands-on learning? Do you guys want to share a little bit about what your perspective has been or experience in the classroom as far as that goes?
I think it will be hard to put a percentage value to
Mhm.
it, but I would say like most of the learning here is experiential and sort of working in groups or teams to basically work that through. For example, like even in the first quarter, we start with something called lead labs, in which you have a cohort of 6 students who basically give feedback to each other every week on what about you encourages me to follow you. It's a very simple question, but just the fact that you hear how your actions land on different people in a small cohort week after week just sort of is a good lab to put yourself through. And I think some of these activities where you are either interacting with different people or like doing it on hands-on on a software or on a lab just makes the learning process much more interactive and much more fun. So I would say like most of my learning has been experiential or working in teams. Having said that, like some of the courses which require theoretical work, like accounting and stuff, would be there, and I think that's the best way to learn some of those courses.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's a mix of both. There's a good number of courses which are heavily theoretical, and there's an equal number of courses which are experiential and practical in nature. At the risk of sounding repetitive, touchy feely is like very practical. There is no theory. There's little to no theory involved in it, and similarly, Startup Garage is like 1 hour of a class every day, but like 4 to 5 hours of practical work outside of class every week. There are a lot of design school courses which are very popular amongst the GSB students, which are all hands-on.
Yes. Yeah.
There are a few courses which involve field work. There are definitely global experience programs which count as coursework, but it is like basically going to a different country with a bunch of your classmates. So
Yeah.
it's an interesting mix of both, I would say.
Great. The next question we'll take is, what clubs and activities outside of class are you enrolled in
I'll go.
when you have free time?
So I'm involved in a couple of things. I am part of a students association. I work in career committee and international committee because these are the two things which are kind of dear to me. I am really passionate about ensuring international students get all the required resources to pursue the careers that they want to pursue. And like I mentioned, I also came to GSB with a goal of transition into tech product management. So I got involved in Tech Club very early on. I'm one of the leaders of High Tech Club. Yeah, I also sit on the Senate where a lot of important discussions and decisions are made. So I would say all these experiences have enriched my GSB life so far.
And you can keep busy for sure.
Yeah, for me it's very similar. I co-chair the academic committee here and also sit on the Senate of the Student Association with Sushmita. I am deeply interested in businesses in India, and I'm the president for the Business in India Club here. And in addition, I'm also involved in a committee called Future of Management Education, in which we are holistically looking at what are the different ways in which we can basically cater to the MBA program here and make it even more attractive for students going forward.
Okay, great. The next question, how has your proximity to Silicon Valley benefited you compared to other programs not in the Bay Area?
I think the biggest benefit for me is the proximity to all the protagonists of the cases that we do in the classes.
Mm-hmm.
All the classes which cover technology and entrepreneurship have cases surrounding real life protagonists who live like right outside Stanford, like in Palo Alto and Mountain View. So it's very easy to have access to people like that. So every single day in each of my classes, I have one of these people who have like taken a company public or have like achieved several other great things in the technology space. Venture capitalists come and talk to us, which is something I can't imagine happening as easily in other schools.
Mm-hmm.
Secondly, being one of the leaders of the tech club, I can totally see how it benefits us in the way of networking as well. It's so easy for us to like call anybody up and ask them to come and do a BBL, which is a brown bag lunch, a lunchtime session where they'll come and talk about topic of their interest or like just represent a company that wants to hire from GSB. So I think these are the two benefits which I can very obviously see how it'll benefit Stanford over any other school.
Yeah, and just in terms of like access to protagonists on the cases, it's also proximity to the culture of Silicon Valley.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is a culture which sort of celebrates taking risk, being entrepreneurial, going after what seems impossible, and just being in that environment, sort of, especially for risk-averse people like me, sort of encourages you to go think outside the box, go achieve your dream. And so I think it's just a good mental lab to put yourself through.
Good, great. All right. What was the application and admissions process like from your perspective as a student?
I think for me, the application process was, in a way, great mental journey to go through, because the application process sort of encouraged me to think deeply about what matters to me and what defines me as a person. And I think this is a culture which is like vastly celebrated at a GSB of knowing yourself well, and the application process sort of encourages each one of us to sort of go through that mental journey. And it was also interesting to like get a chance to interview with an alumni, which and like share their experiences, what they valued at the GSB. So I think it's a good mix of getting to know yourself, getting to know GSB from different diverse perspectives. So it was a good reflection of the GSB culture in general.
Yeah. We talk about the journey here at the GSB, but it really starts in the application process. Yeah. Do you have anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I strongly agree with what Animesh said about it being a mental journey. It's a deep personal experience. I don't think any other school's application essay would probe you to think as much about yourself as much as a Stanford essay does. When I started writing my response to what matters the most to you and why, it really prompted me to think about my entire life and pick out instances that really matter to me. And that journey really extended when I came to GSB. Like, I gave a talk. It was like an extension of that.
Yes, yeah.
So it's really interesting how the journey which starts at what matters the most to you and why keeps getting iterated and improved upon through several other experiences at GSB.
Yeah, a deeply introspective process that continues even here. How did you select the person who wrote your recommendation letter?
I think it was kind of obvious for me because I selected my immediate manager and his manager, the two people who had the best view to my work, because that was my first job. I haven't really spent time in any other company. I worked at Unilever for I joined Unilever right out of college and spent all my time there. And my first boss saw me go through like being a first-time manager to finishing off a stint of 2 years properly. So he was the best positioned to like write about me. And similarly, his manager also had a good view to what happened through my career at Unilever. So these are the two people who were my obvious choices.
Yeah, I'll go to you too, but I want to add to what you said, which another question is, who should applicants choose? And I think it's important that as you are considering individuals, that you do look to those who know you most well, right?
Yeah.
So those who have had the closest experience and can speak specifically to things that you have done, what you've accomplished. And so it's more important that you find someone who knows you well. and can write on that behalf. What do you want to share?
I think you covered it mostly. I would just encourage you to like take the recommendation from someone who knows you well and can talk specific examples, because that is something that the admission office sort of appreciates, like some tangible examples of the qualities they are highlighting in the recommendation letter.
Yes, yeah. And we do have requirements, of course, that you would want to select your immediate, direct, current supervisor, unless there is a reason that you are unable to do so. What is student life like at the GSB, and is it easy to blend in with the people?
I think GSB people are some of the easiest people to blend in with, because everybody comes in with an aim to like get to know other people in the class, and because we all care deeply about introspection and self-awareness, people are very grounded, and people really care about knowing where you really come from instead of just the superficial details of your resume. So I think there are a lot of opportunities to meet a lot of interesting people. I felt at home right away.
Yeah.
I think very similar. I think this is a culture that sort of celebrates the differences and sort of encourages you to be yourself. And I think one common phrase that we use here is fitting in and standing out. And I think both are equally celebrated here. There are a lot of things that we share as a class, and in that sense we fit in. But we also celebrate standing out because each one of us bring a different thing to the class, and that is something that we as a community appreciate, want to develop further. So it's not a pressure to just fit in, but also stand out in your own unique way.
Yeah, very good. Great. What should one focus on when they start attending Stanford? So preparation-wise, so to speak, how do you decide what classes and experiences to take advantage of?
So I can start on this one. It sort of goes back to the point that it's really important that you have 2 or 3 broad goals for yourself when you come to Stanford. When you come here, there will literally millions of opportunities, and you would want to be a part of dance show, you would want to be part of this club and this student activity. For me, in the first week when I came to Stanford, I made a list of like, these are the 3 things I want to walk away from out of Stanford. And every activity I sort of try to do here, I use this lens to evaluate whether it makes sense for me personally. And it is just good to keep a center and be honest to yourself, so that when you are done with the 2 years, you feel proud of what you have done here.
Yeah, that you've done. I often hear people say it's like drinking out of a water hose. There's so many options and opportunities to get involved. It is helpful to sort of have a little bit of an idea or focus, but also be open to other options.
Absolutely.
+1.
Okay. All right. Have you taken any classes outside of the GSB?
I did a couple in my first year. I did a couple of classes in the computer science department, and I also did a really extensive design school class. Both were very unique experiences, nothing like GSB. A lot of fun, getting to know people outside of GSB. It's called across the street classes, and it's a great way to get out of the GSB bubble, especially in the first year, where you live in a dorm right across your classroom complex. So it's one way to like really get out there and meet other interesting people in the broader Stanford community.
I think taking classes outside GSB is like a very unique value proposition that Stanford has. Just the proximity and the relationship GSB shares with other schools within the Stanford family just gives you a lot of different perspectives and helps you basically expand your network beyond GSB. I took a really interesting class, public speaking across the street, which was very unique and very different from the classes we do at the GSB. So it's a great resource that is available to GSB students.
Yeah, and they're talking about across the street, which of course is our term that we use for really any of the other leading professional graduate schools on campus that you'll have access to. You can literally walk within 10 or 15 minutes and be at some of these other professional schools on campus. And it is why over 90% of our students will take a course across the street. So it's a big part of your experience. What is the professional background of your peers at the GSB? Are they diverse in industry and experience? I think we touched a little bit on the importance of diversity within the class, but anything to elaborate on?
Yeah, I think in terms of professional diversity, this is as wide as it gets. There are people from consulting, private equity, to military, to operations. I have one of my classmates who was a NASCAR race driver. So it's like diversity in terms of as broad as it gets. And the way it sort of shows up and is helpful in classroom is like your professional background shapes the way you look at different business problems or non-business problems, and just having that diversity encourages you to think in many different ways to a problem which you wouldn't have thought of otherwise. So I think it's as diverse as it can theoretically get.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally agree with that. And not to mention the number of Olympians which we have in our class. I think this diversity is really helpful in helping you with your own career pursuits, I think. Because if you want to make a switch from one industry to a different industry, there are already a few people who have done that before coming to GSB. So you can just grab a coffee with them and understand what that industry is all about or what that particular function is all about.
Yeah.
And get some key contacts which will help you make inroads into that new career that you want to pursue.
Yeah.
And people are so willing to help you all the time. Everybody is just a phone call or a text message away. So this diversity can really be leveraged to follow your passions.
Great. Thank you. When is the right time to apply to the GSB and which round is best? So I talked a little bit about the right time to apply is when you are ready. That could mean right when you graduate from college. It could mean that you want 2, 3, 5, 10 years of work experience. From our perspective and in the admissions office, when you decide to apply is not necessarily important to us, but it's important for us to understand why it is now. One of the other questions was about which round is best. In general, it is preferred to apply in round 1 or round 2. There are certain opportunities that we provide as a result. If you are a round 1 or round 2 applicant, we offer admit weekends, so you have the opportunity to come here on campus if at all possible. There are other access that you'll have available to you, but we certainly want you to apply when you're ready. So if that means waiting until round 3, that's fine as well. Not sure if you guys have any perspective, having gone through the application yourself, the process.
I think you covered it well, and I would encourage you to not worry too much about round 1 versus round 2. Round 3 is something that, as you said, should only be used in extraordinary circumstances, but between round 1 and round 2, I would not put a lot of maths behind it. Whenever you are ready and you think it's the best time, that round suits best for you.
Okay. All right. What is the Reliance Fellowship, and what are the requirements? So I touched on this a little bit, which is that we do offer a fellowship for those individuals who live in India and have a desire to return to India after graduating. There are specific requirements. You can go online to our website and learn more about that under our fellowship opportunities. Do you have any classmates who you happen to know, or of course,
I am.
do you want to speak to?
For sure. So the process to apply for this fellowship is to actually, it begins before any of the GSB applications process starts. It starts with an essay that you have to write about what are your aspirations for India, how do you want to see India shape up in the near future. Based on that essay and your resume, you'll be shortlisted. A bunch of 50 students is shortlisted.
Yeah, 50 finalists. Mm-hmm.
And there is a networking session which is organized towards the end of August, I think, where you'll meet with several Stanford admissions staff as well as several alumni based in India. There are a couple of group activities and a lot of interaction with the Stanford alumni and fellow applicants. And once you do that, you apply along with everybody else in round 1 or round 2. When I applied to it, I could only apply in round 1, but it has been flexed last year, and now you can apply either in round 1 or round 2. normal application process, there's nothing different about the Stanford application process. The only additional step is the essay which you have to submit around mid-July, and the networking session that I just talked about. And these 50 finalists will apply like any other regular Stanford applicant in either round 1 or round 2.
Yeah, and Sushmita is talking about the pre-application process, which, yes, is what you would do in the summer, early summer. And then we also offer a Reliance Finalist Day, where we bring in everyone to learn a little bit more about the MBA program and the GSB experience, and give you the opportunity to meet alumni of the program as well. And then the second part of the process is for you to apply just like any other candidate through the general MBA application process, and would evaluate you as such.
Yes.
What career, networking, and other professional opportunities have you been able to take advantage of while at the GSB?
So I think in terms of career opportunities, this is ocean of opportunities. I know classmates who have been like trying to switch either industries, geographies, or function, and I think there are opportunities available through various different resources. One is the Career Management Services, the CMC as we call it here, and they organize regular workshops, special workshops for international students on how does American style of interviewing happens. They have company networking nights where companies from all sorts of different industries come and you can interact with them, and they also have on-campus recruitment process. In terms of networking, it goes beyond just the CMC, and as Sushmita alluded to, there are brown bag lunches and what we call BBLs hosted by different companies all throughout the year. And that's a good way to, one, appreciate what these companies do, and also get to know the professionals there, be in touch with them, learn from them over the year, and not just during the recruitment season. And in terms of professional opportunities, like there are a lot of activities that go on, like right from interviewing skills to like building your resume to actually figuring out how you what career is best for you. So like I remember like some of the workshops in the beginning of the year which was super helpful in terms of just thinking through what sort of career would help you find the most meaning in your life.
Yeah.
So I think it's a really vast ocean of opportunities, and it ranges from very philosophical to very tactical opportunities.
Yeah. So +1 to everything he said. Apart from that, a little bit of detail about how the networking and recruitment happens here. So there are two ways, like Animesh alluded to. One is the on-campus recruitment way, which kind of gets over by January and mid-February in your first year.
The traditional track.
Yeah, it's a very traditional kind of companies that come on campus. Then there is networking based job search, which happens like later in the winter quarter and through your spring quarter. One unique thing about Stanford is that a lot of people, especially for internships, really want to pursue new things, so they tend to prefer network based job search. And what exactly helps network based job search? There are two different avenues that I can think of. One is the clubs. A lot of these companies approach clubs, and the clubs conduct the BBLs that Animesh was talking about. That's a great way to network and apply to these companies. And then CMC also has a lot of alumni information. You just need to like figure out what companies you're interested in. There are career advisors that will help you figure out how to approach that company and who are the right people that you need to contact in those companies. And the third, sometimes used resource is professors, I would say. A lot of our professors are like practitioners in the industry. They all either operate companies currently or they have operated companies in the past. So they're very well connected in the industry. So in first year, slightly difficult to get access to those professors because a lot of them teach in the second year. But still, it can be done because nobody is going to deny helping you if you reach out to them. You just need to know who to reach out to. So professors are slightly underrated, but very useful resource.
I want to touch a little bit on, there are of course a lot of resources as you mentioned, and also there is the AAP, the Academic Adjustment Period, which begins in your first quarter. So how did that affect or tell us a little bit about that experience, sort of that time that you can not have to worry so much about the career trajectory?
Sure. So academic adjustment period is the first 6 weeks when
6
you
weeks, yeah.
get in the GSB, and I think it's a really important period because like when you come in here, most of you would be moving to the US. Most likely for the first time, you will be living in the US. You'll be meeting a set of new friends, new classmates, getting to settle in a new educational environment. So this basically 6 weeks provide a buffer where you are not exposed to any career activities or any club activities, and you can just focus on settling into the system, get to know your classmates well, spend some time socially and things like that. So I think for me personally, AAP was a great time to just make myself comfortable in the system before the floodgates
Yeah.
open and you start recruiting or joining the clubs.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks. All right, well, we're coming to the close of our webinar, but before we go, do either of you have any final words of advice? I'll start with you, Sushmita.
I think when I applied to GSB, I had a very one-dimensional approach to it. Like, I want to switch my careers, but I think a GSB experience is a lot more than that. It's a lot about knowing yourself better and becoming a better person. I'm not just throwing some corny lines out there. It's really true. There are so many experiences like Talk, Touchy Feely, and a bunch of other courses. Just the community around you, which really helps you understand yourself and be a better version of yourself. And I am really having a lot of fun. I don't think I would do it all over again if I have to.
Yeah, thank you. Animesh?
So for me, it's very similar. One realization I had here is basically technical skills and analytical skills are simply hygiene as you think of leadership roles, and interpersonal skills and how you lead teams is basically what differentiates you as you grow up the corporate ladder. And I think GSB just provides you that lab where you can experiment with different styles of your leadership or how you interact with people. And I think that journey is such an invaluable resource that you would be thankful for it for the rest of your life.
That's great advice, both of you. Thank you. Thank you both for joining us, and thanks
Thank
for
you.
all of you out there who are participating. You can learn more about the Stanford MBA program on our website and by watching our videos on YouTube.